Hello, everyone. Welcome to the American Scouser post-match. Fuck yeah, or what, Mecca?
I'm still speechless. I can come back to me in an hour.
Dude, that was freaking unbelievable. And the highs and lows this team gives. But the thing is, as you know, as the minutes keep going, and you're like, man, this just might be one of those freaking seasons. The way this game ends, I don't know. It almost feels like this could possibly be a turning point because I think this one now, the way this happened, is a lot bigger of a turning point or an impact or a momentum builder than the Bournemouth game.
Oh, I mean, the Bournemouth game is a gimme almost. Like once the third or fourth goal went in the first half, we knew we were coasting. But this, I mean, it was a typical yet another one to chalk down for the legendary Liverpool Newcastle games. But let's not have a bit of recency, boys, because we won the game. We were dreadful for large parts in the attack in that game. Didn't have a shot on target in the first half, which is abysmal at home. We need something in midfield, something that we now can create, and otherwise we're going to have a lot more games like that. And I have enough hair lost as it is to be tearing even more out, getting last minute winners 8 minutes after the game is supposed to have ended. So we really need to start looking at that.
That's when you convert to the hats, my friend. That's when you convert to the hats. But I mean, here's the thing, obviously I knew I was all anticipating, all the what we would be talking about. And it was kind of like a poor performance. And as you watch, you get disappointed. It's like, what are we doing? It's just the team looks kind of like at times a shell of its old self. But is it really like midfield that's the issue, or is it kind of like how we're playing in some ways? Because it feels like that center is wide open and there is nobody to run into. We talked before the game, we were like, hey, maybe like Bobby should be able to move those center backs around. Even if Bobby moves the center backs around, and he does, like Mo is on one end hugging that touchline. Diaz is usually hugging the other touchline or kind of like running, trying to get away from like six different tackles. It feels like, apart from Harvey, nobody wanted to take that space.
But that's the thing. That should come from our midfielders first. And maybe if Matip was on the field, maybe he would have done it a lot more because it's not really Gomez's thing. But even still, and Harvey, to me, as good as he's been in midfield, he's really almost more like a winger. Like he's yet another of, for some reason, generation of players that drift wide from the central midfield areas. Those nice combinations with Salah and Trent and all that are nice, but they don't go anywhere. We need something to happen from the midfield. Fabinho, I would almost have preferred to have Lucas Leiva in there, just winning the tackles and giving the ball. I mean that seriously. Win the tackles and give the ball to two number eights who get into the attack and do something that's going to scare the hell out of the opposition. But right now, it's too easy for their teams to play against us because the ball's going to go up, it's going to come back, it's going to go inside, it's going to go drop back, it's going to go back to the defenders, switch over to the other side, repeat. Unless Louis
Is that on
Diaz gets
Klopp?
on the ball.
Is that on Klopp in some ways though? Because you
It's
could
not on
see
Klopp.
like throughout the game. I mean, the funny thing is, I was saying it at halftime on the Discord channel. I'm like, it sounds really odd to say, but I said Matip too. I'm like, we need somebody else who's gonna take that space. It almost like Newcastle knew, and they were pressuring that ball that went from Gomez to Van Dijk all the time, and they freaking knew nobody's gonna take the space. So even if the ball gets past that press, there is nobody to take that space. Whereas Matip would do one of his adventure runs.
Yeah.
Because I mean, aside from that, so you have at one point, I mean, they were kind of passing it around. I was like, so who's gonna kind of slightly go forward with this ball? Because it was Gomez, Fabinho, Hendo, Gomez, Van Dyke, Gomez, Fabinho, and nobody wanted to take that space in front of him. So we just keep, and then eventually we just played that long diagonal to a Harvey or a Mo, and I think that only connected maybe like once or twice the entire game. They just knew we were gonna do that diagonal. Anytime, eventually it landed at Van Dyke, and then we did the diagonal. And usually they were able to just head it out or throw in. I was like, oh, one of these is hopefully going to get past, and we're gonna make something out of it. And it just did not. I mean, Is that due to lack of options, or is that partially because you hung on to a guy like Carvalho a lot longer than we should have, seeing what we were seeing the entire first half?
Possibly, yeah. I don't know what I mean. I don't know whether it's down to Klopp per se, because from what I've seen and read, he doesn't run the training sessions, so he's not making the coaching points to the players. That's Linder's essentially. That's his job. Um, so have we come to the limit of his ability to not his ability, that's going to sound like a criticism, but it's almost like a complacency, like what worked last season, the season before, and the season before will work again this season. But unless you get new personnel in, you have to, coaches also have to change up their ideas as well. It's not just about refreshing the feet on the field. You have to refresh what's going on in the training too.
But I mean, that might work. The old system could work if you had a guy like Thiago, and you're gonna laugh, but like Keita or somebody like that, who's suddenly going to turn into that space and pull defenders towards them and create some space behind it. But when you have this personnel, who you're putting out there for 11. I mean, I don't care if it's Pep or Klopp or whoever, but who you're putting out there as 11. And in return, I would assume you kind of know how Newcastle is going to counter with that. Even if you freaking didn't, as you watch the game, you see how Newcastle is countering with that. I mean, I guess I was frustrated with the lack of adjustments when you tried out the same 11 in the second half and continue from where we were. It was just like, it's not like it was working. I mean, we didn't have a shot on goal. So it wasn't like, oh, the goal is coming, though. It's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
It was just like, when the hell is it ever going to, like, where is it even going to come from, is what you were thinking.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, like you do kind of see this isn't. Klopp doesn't strike me as somebody who worries overly about the opposition. I know he has. I can never say his last name, right? Kravitz or whatever his name is, and the eye who does all that kind of stuff. But he strikes me more like an old, like a Martin O'Neill almost, who famously always says to his teams, "We'll just worry about us, and if they can cope with us,
which is fair,
then we'll adjust." But yeah, I mean, you have to start somewhere. It's one way or the other. Rafa always worried about the opposition, even when they weren't worth worrying about, and Klopp probably doesn't even give them a second thought.
That can almost sometimes have you overthink and make adjustments that you didn't maybe have to make. But now that you see what's going on the field, you have to make some kind of an adjustment.
You do, but like, I mean, this is what, like, this is the kind of the midfield dynamic, because you are correct. If Thiago's on the field, it's probably a different game. But Thiago's not always on the field, because a lot of the time he likes to talk to the physiotherapist for a long time. They must be very interesting, because
are they calling you for midfield over there?
A lot of our players spend a lot of time with them. Like, they must be very interesting people. But that's why we need somebody else who can do what Thiago does, not as a carbon copy, but who can drive the game forward. We don't have that outside of Thiago, and we're maybe we're also missing Kanate, because he does that as well a little bit, maybe not as well as Matip, but he does steamroller the ball forward quite effectively. So we're missing things that we could remedy in the transfer market, and we've seemed reluctant to do that, probably because when we get those players back from injury, we're overstocked in certain areas. But we don't have those players consistently. The players that were in the midfield, especially, like, they're always injured. So you have to put something in there. We can't, unless we want to be so far behind, we have to do yet another miracle. And that becomes, I'm sure, for the players, tiring eventually to have to keep performing beyond everybody's expectations, physically and mentally.
I mean, here's the thing with I'm always odd, and I almost seem like a direction, perhaps, that, not to push up and leave those spaces behind. Because, I mean, Gomez plays right back at times. It's not like Gomez is not capable of making those runs forward like Matip or Konate would. It's just that we did not have anybody to take advantage of those spaces. I mean, I thought Bobby had another great game out there. I mean, he will not show in all the stats, but in terms of like his movements and stuff like that, but it felt like he was alone in the middle. He did not even have a lot of people to like do the interplay with. But what do we learn from this game? I mean, did we learn anything?
Well, we learned apart from the midfield thing. What I think, if I could have like 10 seconds of Klopp's ear time, I'd say take Diaz and Salah off the wings. Let them just play wherever the hell they want because Firmino was looking to combine with players, and we did get that Firmino Salah combination we talked about before the game, just in reverse order. But they are looking for each other, but it's hard to do stuff when you're stuck out on the touchline and not having that freedom that like to just go wherever you want. Diaz kind of does that a little bit more, maybe because he's newer to the whole thing, and he caused them, I thought, the most problems. But we don't seem to want to take shots sometimes in those situations. It's always like we'll pass it off to the next player to get a better shot. But it's not the better shot that scores. Like nobody expected that shot to win the game for us. That's a ball that pops up and then just like somebody swings a leg at it, hits the crossbar and goes in. We're the winners 8 minutes after the game's supposed to have ended. So we're almost like Arsenal, almost with Wenger in his last few seasons, trying to look for that perfect Liverpool goal when it really doesn't matter. Just put off your left testicle, let it go in the net, and we'll celebrate and talk about it later, as Paisley once said.
Yeah, Alan says absolutely right about Diaz and Mo. So you think that adjustment basically is not paying off like what we did this season compared to the past, where those guys are wider and we're kind of like opening the door for Robertson and Trent to kind of like take advantage of that, play more towards the inside? Or is it just because I know Trent had a good game last week, but if you look at the entire season, both those guys have not been anywhere near their top form. Is it just because the space is there, just the guys who should take advantage of it are not in the peak of their form, nowhere near their peak of their form, I should say?
Well, I don't. We didn't buy Robertson and we didn't promote Trent Alexander-Arnold to be inside, old-fashioned inside halves, inside lefts and inside rights. They're outside attacking wing backs essentially. They would look not out of place at any point in their natural game. They wouldn't look out of place in like a West German 1988 team. They're just up and down the field, hugging the touchline, getting their crosses in, and fantastic on set pieces. So it feels to me like if we're doing that, we're almost asking them to play a game that's entirely alien to them, which means we're asking Salah, as we talked before, to play a game that's entirely alien to him. And Firmino is now doing the game he normally does, but he has nothing to connect with. So it's almost a new game for him. So we're asking players to do things that they're not really naturally inclined to do. So maybe let's not do that. Maybe let's go back to what worked. Let Trent and Robertson hug the outsides. Let Diaz and Salah just float wherever the hell they want to go. And then if Firmino's playing, let him tie it all together. If Nunez is playing, let him be the battering ram up front that creates the space underneath them for the two lads to do their magic. But we'll have to figure it out because we got away with that. As great as it is to feel like, that last minute, last second, last kick of the game kind of a winner, we stole it, essentially. A 1-1 draw would have been perfectly a fair score, I think, for both teams.
I know a lot of talk is going to be about the fact that we scored in the 98th in a game that was extended 5 minutes. And see, I think the way that was handled was wrong. I called that it was going to be 5 minutes, regardless of how much around they were lying down like it was a goddamn beach. You knew they were not going to be like 7, 8, 9 minutes added. But but you would think technically once they add 5 minutes, they should only be adding what happened within the 5 minutes. But it almost seemed like, I think like Pope was down for a couple of minutes, like maybe a minute or two. That I don't even know if that was after the 90th or right at the 90th. Maybe it was like 89 and a half or something like that, I think, when it happened. Aside from that, the funny thing is, on the Discord channel, we're talking. And if you're not on the Discord channel, you should join because it's a good therapy at the same time. Voice frustration, share the joys, all the good stuff at the same time. And we were talking about how slow we were taking it. Like they thought there was 10 minutes. Like we were kind of passing it back and forth, still passing it back, not even like kind of like trying to go forward. It was just frustrating. And then obviously that goal comes, and I had like the dogs and everybody was all over the place at home. But so let me ask you about those set pieces, because you kind of like talked about that. Are you kind of shocked that we did not get anything out of the like 800 corner kicks we seem to take?
No, because they're set up for that. It's like it's that. I mean, they have like a 8.5 foot central defender. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not. It. We can't play that game against players that are used to playing that game. Do you know? It was. I can't remember who's the other defender. Lascelles and Bourne, Dan
Uh,
Bourne.
but,
So two defenders well versed in how English football goes at this point. So it was meat and drink for them. So we needed to be a little bit more. I missed the subtle corners we used to do. I like this was a game where you want that Trent Alexander-Arnold quick thinking corner kick into Origi to score against Barcelona. We don't do that anymore. It's the same corner. It's either overhit or it's straight into the goalkeeper's hands or that area, and we don't have enough players to compete for it. So we really should change that up a tiny bit. Like if we're into the small margins and all that, and bringing in throw-in coaches, maybe we need to put somebody in to develop a few corner kick plays for us, because that was it. We cannot laugh at David Moyes and his 82 crosses against Fulham as manager of Man United if we're going to do that, because that was just as ineffective.
And that's why it was shocking, because we did it not only on the set pieces, but we kept freaking doing it throughout the game, like aimless crosses to those two towers in the middle. And it would be one thing if you had, maybe if you had Nunes in there, but I mean, even if you had Nunes in there, like you say, like Burns is like freaking like a giant in there, you're still squeezing him in between two players. Why keep, is that just being out of ideas and not having that guy maybe in the midfield, or the guys being too wide? There's just lack of ideas, because I mean, it's okay to have the patience, right? I mean, I understand it, like everybody is like, when you're scoring a goal, why are you playing sideways? I mean, whatever, you have to build the play. First of all, they didn't let us do those switches very easy. Anytime the ball came, and we kind of know the natural flow going from Van Dijk to Gomez, the moment the ball left Van Dijk's foot, they were rushing Gomez, or vice versa. They did not want to have that diagonal coming afterwards directly. So they were kind of stopping that, but it felt like we ran out of ideas. So we kept chugging it in, especially the last 10-15 minutes of the first half. It felt like all we did was kind of, like lob it into the box. And obviously, like you're saying, that's what Newcastle is designed for. They were like, bring it. Because, then they can dive, hold the heads. And by the way, I know it's totally off record, but I was talking about this in the midway game too. I think I want to introduce a new rule to the game, because I'm that kind of guy. When the ball is out of play, to kill time, when the player is bringing it into play by design, that should be a yellow card. Because I think that's no different than them standing in front of the ball and preventing a kick. Because you're preventing a kick from now, like 20 feet away, because you're putting another ball into play that was already out of bounds. Can we start a petition going and make this happen? You got connections.
Well,
So
yeah,
the ball will be out of bounds.
my connection is at the breweries, though. To be fair, I mean, we can
Hey,
try that.
whoever we can get. Jamie says, does stealing it make it taste sweeter? And I think,
oh no, it's like cotton candy wrapped in caramel, in between two French toasts.
It's a chubby guy's dream.
It's, I mean, it's pre-diabetes on a plate. And more because they spend so much time wasting the time. That's literally what made it. They've only themselves to blame. And I know there's a bit of a kickoff between the two benches at the end of the game, but quite rightly, because they were. I mean, they're entitled to spoil the game. They're entitled to waste time. That's if that's how they want to win the game or not lose the game, then fair play to them. But that's your just reward. If you don't keep going to win the game, the other team might. So it does taste. It tastes immensely sweeter for that reason. It would. The only thing that would make it sweeter would be if it was Everton who did it, or Man United who did that. That's the only thing. But at the same time, we did steal it, because we weren't looking like we were dominating. If we'd had like 3 or 4, if Nick Pope had the game of his life in the first half, that's one thing. But he didn't have to do anything. He could have tied and untied his laces with his gloves on for 45 minutes, and it wouldn't have made any difference, because we didn't put him under any threat.
So, yeah, see, Jamie says,
but yes, to your rule.
Yes to my rule.
Yeah.
Approved. Testing up. Okay, I'm gonna post this. We got fans on Facebook. Maybe we'll get this started. I mean, that has to be something they have to look into because it was obnoxious how many times they were doing it, and it almost like it was by design. It was almost like, hey, during the game when this happens, this is what we're doing. It's like if it happens once, you're like, okay, the guy is slick trying to get. But then when you see like 8 different players doing the same shit, you're like, oh, okay, this
Actually,
must
now
be
that I
the new
think
thing
about it,
now.
the first thing I do is ask the ball boys what they were doing and not stopping it. So
You
they're all fired.
light tackle them.
They're all fired tomorrow they're gone. We're getting robots.
So I'm finally able to bring this up over here and pull up the stats. So here's the thing, talking about stealing. And I think when you looked at the overall play, you probably would say, yep, it's stealing, right? But if I told you, hey, we won 2-1, you didn't watch the game, you didn't look at the score sheet, and you look at this, do you say, man, we should have scored more? I don't know what the hell they're talking about stealing it.
No, and I'll tell you why. 6 shots on target is probably about worth 2 goals. So 2-1 would have been like an okay score to guess at. But what you need to do is to drill down into when those shots on target came from, and I'd imagine that it was pretty much all that last 10 minutes. I think we were at 2 shots on target, 3 shots on target up until the 75th minute, I believe. It was the last time I looked at it. We if you looked at
The
the
first
stats of
one
the
was
first,
60, I think, right?
so again,
The first shot was like the 60th minute,
yeah,
right?
look, if you looked at those stats at half time, you'd go, "There's only one team winning here. Like, there's only one team, and it's Newcastle." You know, we didn't look like we didn't look like a team that was going to pull a win out of the bag at all. We were very sterile looking. But that's the beauty of numbers. They can tell you a story that overall we probably just about deserved to win it. But performance wise, like just visually looking at it, we were, because we have the context of seeing previous games over the last 10 going back into last season, we do have problems creating shots suddenly. If we could have created more shots in the Champions League final, we'd be Champions League winners. We just couldn't put the ball in the net because we have a very predictable attack, I think, at
Is that
times.
going back to what you were saying about the whole Arsenal, like the Wenger Arsenal thing, though, trying to get the perfect
It
goal and
seems like
trying to just get the tap in as opposed to, just rolling the
Oh no,
dice?
I don't know whether it's a tap in. I think what it is the little bit of triangular movement on the side. We get the ball to Salah, he cuts in and he smashes it in with his left foot because that's all he keeps trying to do, and it's not working. I mean, the one time he didn't try to do it, he gave it to Firmino and creates a goal.
Yeah.
And so, but Diaz, as much as I love that guy, he's doing essentially the same thing on the opposite side. He's trying to cut in, he's trying to get a long shot from outside the box. So if you're defending against that, that's very predictable. And the only difference maker we have is Nunez, who's out suspended. And he's only difference maker because he's different than pretty much what Klopp has had for most of his time at Liverpool. Like, he got rid of Benteke, got rid of. Did he get rid of Lambert, or was Lambert pre-Klopp?
Was he even ever there?
No, that's true. But and to be fair, he would have fit into our midfield.
He was, though.
He would fit into our midfield right now, Ricky Lambert. But what I'm saying, like, Klopp's, he's never really had that big lad up front, So Nunez gives us something a bit different in that sense. But yeah, look, we're just a little bit predictable as far as I can see.
Okay, but let me play the devil's advocate over here because it's what I do best. I mean, when we talked about earlier in terms of being able to make adjustments and doing the same thing you always do and hoping it works eventually, how is having a totally new guy like that going to help the cause? Alan Walnut says, Alan is like the sideline reporter we got going here. He says Hendo is out versus Everton, then hamstring. I did not realize it was coming out for the hamstring.
You walked straight down the tunnel.
That makes it freaking worse, to be honest with you, because I thought I was like, finally, we're making some kind of a tactical change. I guess we were not. So you're telling me if Hendo was not hurt, we would not even see Carvalho? By the way, is that what that means?
Is that me?
I'm asking you.
No, I don't know, but like he went straight down the tunnel. Yeah. He went straight down the tunnel. Like, I noticed that he didn't go onto the bench, so I knew there was something serious, but I didn't know it was a hamstring. I thought it might have been his knee, or his ankle from that kick very early on in the game.
If it's a hammy, that is not a good
Yeah, not for
ordeal,
him at his age.
especially for him. Yes.
Yeah, and it's not James Milner. He probably has 4 different sets of hamstrings at home that he just reattaches every night. But to go to your what was your question again?
Nunez, like if we're not having
No,
a
yeah,
tough time
what he
adjusting,
does is he occupies a defender. So if you put Nunez on that pitch today, Dan Bourne has to mark him because he's the only one in that back four can mark him. So that takes Dan Bourne out of the game for anybody else, because if he leaves Nunez free, he's going to get hurt. Like technically, like soccer wise. So that's a man marking assignment right there, and that means that it's Lascelles against whoever we can put up against him, which means that he's outnumbered. So Bobby drops off. And we know Bobby drops off. So their job is way easier. They don't have to worry about Bobby Firmino in the flow of play in general. What they have to worry about is the cross coming in, which, as we talked, so with Nunez in the box for a cross, now they have to go with somebody. And Nunez might not get the ball, but it might drop to somebody running in late because Dan Bourne would have been there, but now he has to go near post because that's where Nunez went. Or Nunez dropped out, so he has to go with Nunez there. So yeah, just a different thing, different sort of mental thing that the opposition defense have to deal with, and it disrupts their pattern because they're expecting something different from Liverpool. Plus, he plays on the shoulder, which means that they can't really play a high line because he's incredibly rapid. So, it's these little things like it's why Shanks and Paisley were such different managers, in that Shanks held on to players far too long, so it probably made it a lot easier to defend against. Because I love the history of how that all went out. We had it was Roger Hunt and St. John up front. Then he brings in Kevin Keegan, and Kevin Keegan changes the whole game because Kevin Keegan doesn't do anything that anybody ever expected, and suddenly Liverpool becomes successful again. And Paisley must have been watching that because you could see he chopped and changed his team every 2 or 3 years to make sure it was fresh. So I think that's Nunez would give us that. But yeah, if he played, I think it was a different game. But it's because it occupies defenders in a different way and it changes the patterns of play.
Well, then, okay, so let me ask you this. Do you put, because it's almost like the way he's in form, and I guess you could say, well, he's tired, he needs a rest for the Everton game, but do you use Bobby there? Do we ever switch to this 4-2-3-1 thing? If you're going to already throw, Diaz and Mo down the line, like really close to the wing, do we just do especially with the shortage we have in midfielders, is it almost smart to do 4-2-3-1, and you probably will have to have Milner over there and then throw Bobby ahead so you can have Bobby and Nunez there at the same time? It's a combination I really want to see, only because of the chaos they will create with Bobby pulling people over the place, and like you're saying, Nunez almost demanding somebody to be on him.
Well, if Bobby's the number 10, he's not going to pull an awful lot of players out of place. What he's going to do, I would reckon, in that situation, is take the space that Nunez leaves, because Nunez is going to move across the line, and he's not going to check back so much. He's going to push on the shoulder and then move across.
Especially to the left. Like if you look at his like heat maps when he was in Benfica, like he's always like more to the left. So he takes his, center back towards that way.
Yeah, so create space for exactly how he scored the goal today. The little pocket gets created in front of the defenders when the defender has left that spot, and then he pops in, and then that creates maybe more space for Diaz on the other side because people have to compensate at that point. So I would love to see that as well. I don't know whether that's anything that Klopp would think about, because we seem to be married to that 4-3-3. Because I would even like to see like Diaz or Salah and Nunez up front, and then Firmino in behind, and I'd play a 4-3-1-2, and that would give the space for the two fullbacks to do their natural job. But this is all wishful thinking because Klopp doesn't make those kind of changes. It's 4-3-3.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Come
That
hell
we
or
go
high
back to
water.
square one over here. Jamie says, looking forward to teaching him a lesson in St. James. Surely they won't play time wasting tactics and have an open game in front of their fans. But honestly, I think they would get away with a lot more of this shit. Like, especially if they have the lead. I don't think people in St. James are going to care as much if they have the lead. If they do not, yeah, they will probably want them to share a lot more. So I know what Jamie is saying there. And
Well,
Chris,
to be fair, the Newcastle fans have a choice. They can either look at the game and then get upset about that time wasting, or they could die from hypothermia. That's the two choices Newcastle fans have because they keep taking their tops off for some
we
reason.
already had a lot of Newcastle fans here at American Scouser, so we might have lost a few that we had left. Hats off to Andre Mariner, says Chris Scott. After a terrible first half, he came back with an extra time to spit in Eddie Howe's face. I just did not understand. And I was, and this is, I'm not saying this just because it's Liverpool, because I was saying the same thing yesterday watching the Leeds Everton game. Maybe I was saying it then because it was Everton. But either way, like it almost feels like the Premier League kind of like lets this happen. This whole, oh, I'm adding the time and showing your watch and stuff. When did it become okay? Like it used to be a warn you once, warn you twice. Dude, I freaking told you, and give him the yellow, because a player is going to stop doing that and others are going to stop doing that knowing there's a card on the line. Is it just like a strategy difference now, or is it like Premier League refs getting shittier or caring less? If it's all about speeding the game, we let people like dying on the ground because it's a leg injury and not head to speed up the game. We keep going, but then we let people take like 45 seconds for a throw in.
Well, I mean, the refs are almost the celebrities of the game as much as the players these days. And so it seems sometimes, at least in the Premier League, a concerted effort to make the refs a part of the promos almost. So I think if you read things from Clattenburg and stuff like that, and what he said post retirement, it seems that there is an awful lot of behind the scenes management of how refs deal with games in order to make the games exciting, almost like professional wrestling, kind of. You're going to
Right up
say this
your
and you're
alley.
going to do that. But like it's almost stage managed to make villains and heroes of the referees, which I don't like. I mean, I can't say for with any confidence that making them full time professionals has made English referees any fitter, because it didn't. Because there's still a lot of fat referees out there, and I could do that
It
job.
gives us all hope, man. Hey, Alan was
Um,
saying you could be a ref. Maybe that's what he
it's
means.
true, yeah. But I don't know the rules either. But at the same time, like sometimes I wish for them to be like the old part-time referees that had to go into a job on Monday morning and justify themselves at least to their friends or workmates, so you didn't get as much controversial decisions or something like that, and they didn't take any crap from anybody. But yeah, it seems to be something in English football because we see a difference in Europe with that kind of stuff. It gets hammered
Yeah.
a lot more in
Yeah.
Europe. So I fully would would accept that there's some sort of diktat from the referees or the Premier League, even maybe, to make things a bit more dramatic than they need to be in order to make the refs part of the spectacle.
Adding to the excitement before I forget, because I am horrible at these things. But if you have not already, today is the last day for this giveaway. Giving away 3 of these sets over here. So head over to American Scouser on YouTube. All you have to do is subscribe. It's all free. You get a lot of Liverpool content, a lot of Liverpool comedy, a sweating Mecca. You get it all, right? I mean, it's Mecca drinking gin in the morning, me
This is
drinking coffee in the
this
morning.
is the Hennessy sweats.
Midday Hennessy sweats. Yeah,
Yeah.
so head over to American Scouser on YouTube. Just subscribe, and the rest will take care of. 3 people will be announced tomorrow as the winners. So take care of that now. You got another 7.5 hours. It should be midnight Central. I
We
haven't been
we
in Chicago. That's when I make the call. Is the Central time.
we give it away more than the Red Hot Chili Peppers do. That's all I can say.
See, it's like music guy kicking in. So let's look ahead. You guys have the podcast tomorrow, and you're going to be hosting, so that should be quite the bash. Yeah, by itself, that should be quite the bash. You
We're in
hosting
trouble.
with Jamie on top of it. Jamie and David Rice joining you. So I'm sure you guys will like talk about this game a lot, analyze and all that kind of good stuff. Um, by the way, Alan says, I wish the arm wrapping at corners was considered as obstruction. I'm kind of torn on that one because a lot of things can be called, but I know sometimes, like the one on Hendo. And here's another thing. See, I always look at these things as a center back, but there are times where the freaking defender is wrapping around you. So you know what? What goes around comes around. You kind of
Yeah.
wrapping around them. But the one with the Hendo, for example, it looked like more like he was literally hugging Hendo down. But that's a different story. So you guys will talk about the podcast. I'm on the podcast. I'm sure you guys will talk a lot about this game. By then, well, most people will be sober. I don't know about you and Jamie and stuff. But real quick, look ahead to the Everton game. Let me pick your brain in terms of what you expect to see, especially with this Hendo news, which I just saw confirmed by Klopp. So we can confirm Alan Walnut's sideline reporting over here that he has a hamstring issue. It automatically means he's not going to be there Saturday. God knows now how long. What do you expect to see lineup wise?
Milner. It'll be Milner in there. Milner, Fabinho, Elliott.
It almost seems, yeah, like that's sad though, isn't it? In some ways,
No, it
like
is.
there's not going to be any
That's what I'm
creativity
saying. They
being
need
involved
something
in
a bit
them.
more. Like, now to be fair, Everton Liverpool games never follow any sort of form except for they're always wars. They're always battles. So maybe for me, or maybe Milner in there is not a bad thing because he's not afraid to have a slight kick at anybody, and somebody probably needs to protect Elliott because he's going to get kicked from pillar to post. Um, but it's going to be, I think, more of the same of as today. If they're going by how they played against Leeds, they're just going to sit in and they're going to hope for the best. Maybe if they get an early goal, because we seem to give those to people, they'll do
And
even more. And their time wasting is it's a stratospheric level. If we thought
yes,
Newcastle were bad, so
it
it
makes
could be very
Newcastle look like they're
frustrating.
playing fast.
Yeah, literally, it makes it's like watching me sprinting and then watching a turtle sprinting. It's a different experience. But yeah, I don't see it being an easy game, and it could end up being exactly the same way as it was today. If Nunes is back, you can't take Firmino out, can you? Because he scored.
And that's why, I mean, not only he scored, I mean, really in the middle, he's the only one kind of like take advantage of that. I mean, the pass to, is that Diaz in the first half? That's Diaz, right? Like he went past the goalie. I mean, that is a
Yeah,
brilliant setup there. I mean, anything that happened in terms of good, in terms of interplay, as always, Bobby seemed to be involved. I mean, he's almost like very close to his normal Bobbiness that we're used to. So I feel like it would be really hard to take him out of that, lineup right now. If, he should probably be one of the first names penciled in, unless, we're looking for a rotation, knowing there's a well rested, has not played in 2 weeks guy like Nunez. At the same time, though, do you throw a guy like Nunez to this game where there's going to be a lot of, it's a derby game. There's gonna be a lot of shithousery, all kind of stuff. Do you even throw him into the lineup starting 11 there, or you just bring him off the bench like you were earlier in the season?
no, you probably have to bring him off the bench because you want to gauge the temperature. You can assume that everybody's had a word with him about how the game goes in England and how defenders are against forwards. But still, you don't want to start them and then lose them 10 minutes later, because Connor Cody wound him up, or James Tarkowski had a clip at his ankles or something like that. So maybe see how the game goes, and if it's not a testy one, then you can throw him on if needed. But then again, we just said he's not going to go for a 4-2-3-1 with Nunes and Firmino Klopp. So it's going to be 4-3-3. So it has to be Firmino to start, and it's going to be Diaz, and it's going to be Salah, it's going to be Elliott, it's going to be Fabinho, and it's probably going to be Milner, and then Robert.
So
It's going to be the
what's
same.
little Carvalho got to do?
Um, I think he's just got to come off the bench again.
I got you.
Maybe he'll replace Diaz at some point, because actually you could see Diaz getting round up a bit by them because they're gonna
The
hammer into him.
tackle he did at, what was that, like 92nd minute or something like that. There was a tackle he did where he went like both feet in. If that makes contact, that could have been a red.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just the way he went, and it was just a frustrated, it's just a frustration tackle. Been there, done that. But yeah, if he made contact, I could see that going a horrible way. Chris Scott says bring him off the bench. I don't think he'll be able to take 90 minutes of shithousery. That's for one. And honestly, like if they're both, we're gonna do something creative and we're gonna have both on the field. Let's roll the dice.
Mm.
But if we're not going to do that, I really want Bobby out there and maybe tell Bobby, hey, not gonna get rotated, but you got 60 minutes instead of 90 to do your thing. And here's another thing, like it'd be good to have a guy who you can bring off the bench to change the game. Which is my last question before we kind of like leave here is what do you make of the Trent to Milner substitution? Because that one makes it look a bit more odd now.
I thought I thought we were going to go to a back three when he came on, when Miller came on and Trent went off, but we didn't. We went to a back four. We didn't really need, like, the attack wasn't working down that side from Trent, at least, I don't think. So maybe it was the case of let's just solidify that side up so that we're not caught on the break. And at least Milner knows what to do with the ball when he does get it and if he gets it in any dangerous situations. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything going on with Trent injury wise or fatigue wise or anything like that. So maybe it was just keep him fresh for the Everton game. Who else do we put out there? It would be Gomez almost, wouldn't it? So you'd have to have a centre back put in. Probably didn't want to risk Matip at that point. So it's probably just a best of both worlds kind of a thing.
And almost like kept Fab out there and he tried it twice to take those shots because he's one of the few that can kind of like crank the shot from outside the box from those corner kicks, like the rebounds and stuff like that. But
well, if he keeps doing it like that, the Buccaneers will be signing him next year.
Chris Scott says, let's be real. We play it back to Trent and Robo or wing backs. I mean, yeah, pretty much. And I know, especially on a game like today, when you're like chasing it, I actually thought Gomez did really well today. I know sometimes he looks like he did get caught on the ball a few times, but he's kind of like agile enough to get out of it. One of them, he almost had like a freaking assist out of it afterwards. I thought he was like hustling the guy. But overall, normally after this game, I would do the post match and catch up on some work that I missed over the last 3 hours or whatever. But man, I am so hyped up after that goal and all the screaming and yelling and dog wrestling afterwards that I don't know if I'll be able to do a whole lot today. What's in the plans for Mecca rest of the
evening? Don't know, but what you do in your private time with your pets is your own business, dude. Seriously. Me, no, I have to do some editing, don't I?
Oh, yes, you do. Dang it. We're behind. Yeah, the PL show will be in your good hands, so we can get that out on YouTube for you guys. And then obviously tomorrow night, you're going to be hosting. That should be quite the bash right there. So thanks, everybody, for commenting. Do not forget to head over to YouTube right now. Subscribe to American Scouser to be in the giveaway. And Alan Walnut says, no mention of Brandon. I will be afraid of how many. I'm putting the over-under of Brandon mentions at tomorrow's podcast at 5.
Well, so Villa lost.
Can place the bets.
Villa lost. So, they might be sacking Gerrard tomorrow. And then, Brendan might be up there for that job. And, not to bash Brendan, but that'd be perfect for him.
Well, have a great day, everybody. I mean, after this, it should be I feel like relieved, and like games like this, I feel tired afterwards. That sudden rush to the brain, especially when it's my brain that's not used a lot, maybe it just ends up being very tiring. So it's going to be a nice, chill, relaxed evening. Hope you guys enjoy your evening. Tomorrow night, this guy will be back with the live podcast. Thursday podcasts are back because the midway games are back. So tune in at 7 p.m. Central. That's 8 Eastern for people like Bickler who have trouble converting the times. And we'll see you guys then. Take care, everybody.